Welcome everyone. Can everyone hear me in the back? So I was going to talk a little bit about my design scholarship and how I got to where I'm at now with my students and my designs. So I began my creative scholarship when I started teaching fashion design. So before that, I had a company and I designed specifically for a client, custom made gowns, mostly doing bridal. So the concentration of my design scholarship evolved over time. I started investigating the importance of sustainability in fashion, needing to address the 11.3 million tons of textile waste that ends up in landfills. And I know our students are really, concerned about this and, really, really look at this and involved. And a lot of this is, you see that in their work. My earlier designs address sustainability through aesthetic sustainability, valuing the garment. So buying quality, not quantity. Slow fashion versus fast fashion. Going back to times when people valued textiles. People back, 50 years ago, 70 years ago, they really valued textiles. So a lot of things that they would do is garments made from feed sacks, quilts, hand-me-downs, and Gone with the Wind. Did anybody watch that movie, Gone with the Wind? Right? So, I know. But Gone with the Wind, a big part of it is that they had these very beautiful draperies, and they took them down, and she had a dress made out of that. So they really valued textiles. They didn't waste anything. So, we need to kind of think about that. So when I did my red dress is around here, that was a dress that, couture construction, and it was something that I did for an ad that ended up in the Philadelphia magazine and on billboards, and it was really fun, on the side of buses. And so, it still lives, the dress still lives, and I'm sure to be hopefully worn again. So, and then there was my panier, and I'm trying to think where they are. Okay, the panier's back here. So the panier was one that I did for an exhibit at a museum in Indiana. And so I was, had to couple it with another designer inspiration. So again, looking at couture fashion and how that can be really sustainable. Because you think about a lot of times with couture fashion, that ends up maybe in a museum, or people, hold on to it, they pass it down, things that live for a long time. So another thing that I started doing, I did this kind of really early in my career, doing transformation. I love that. Transforming, a dress that would look one way and then change into another way. So if you look back here, not what it seems, that was a wedding dress that I designed. And so what you could do, like the big thing that was happening at that time, is that brides were getting two dresses, and they're wearing them for a short amount of time. So with that, the dress transformed. So pieces came off. So when the ceremony could be more traditional, and then, pieces came off, and the train came off, the jacket came off, and ready to wear a cocktail dress to the event. And then if you look at the other one all the way to the end there, that one, it was an investigation that I did, and it was really almost like a bubble, but I kind of shortened it. So the dress actually transforms coming up and around. So you can make it shorter, and then you could make it longer. So I had to make sure that it hit exactly at the same point and width, that when it was down here it could be the same, so you could make that transformation. So, so again, you get two different looks. The longer look would definitely be, a more formal event, and the other one would be maybe something not quite as formal, but still, formal. So transformation was a big thing that I was doing for a little bit, and you'll see some of the things too with the students that I really have them do the transformation as well, because it's really kind of a fun thing, and it really is very impressive when it comes to our fashion show, which, by the way, is May 4th. So put that on your calendars. Okay, so then, I was doing a lot and thinking about, upcycling, textiles that are out there. How many people, remember, maybe not my students, but, putting really beautiful linens on your tables, right, at the holidays. Well, I had somebody that donated to me all these beautiful linens. I mean, one of them she got in Paris, and I was like almost afraid to cut into it, because again, I thought about upcycling. I'm thinking, is that really upcycling when there's this beautiful linen? And, I'm cutting into it, to make a wedding dress. But, she was not going to be using it anymore. So it was really a fun project, and that's the Heirloom Elegance there. So that's 3 different tablecloths that all came together. And so that was a lot of fun to do that. But the thing is, and my students realize this because they do a lot with upcycling fabrics and textiles. And, is that you have to look for, there was some like stains that I had to work around the stains, for the middle of a wedding dress. So now, how I got into zero waste. Zero waste is really a big part of what I do now with Design Scholarship, and it's a big part of my students. Every single design student, has to do a zero waste project. And so a couple of them have zero waste up here, so we'll be talking about that as well. So, what I did is I took this workshop in New York City, and it was with Julian Roberts. And Julian Roberts came up with this idea to do this subtraction cutting method. And so the subtraction cutting method, so I took this on a weekend. So we learned everything about it on a Friday, and then we had to produce it by Saturday, and we had an exhibit that afternoon on our garments. And this was actually the garment that came out of that. So, I did go back and lined it, because it wasn't lined when it was done. And and this is in here, this missed the exhibit, but that was my first zero waste attempt. And the person that was in my class, the workshop with me, was Tim O'Rislin. And so probably the students know that, and he's the one who has written the book on zero waste. So it was his first experience with zero waste as well as mine. So anyways, it was a really eye-opening experience to think about that. And so you think about why zero waste. Now when I first came here, I had students, when I told them we were going to do a zero waste project, they told me later, we were thinking it was W-A-I-S-T. And they're like, how do you not have a waste? So it is W-A-S-T-E. So what it is let me read you statistics, which I think is pretty interesting. So the zero waste designs address the fabric waste from apparel manufacturing. So 15% of fabric waste after the cutting process ends up on the cutting floor. So when you think about it, if you think about a neckline, a scoop neckline, when that's all being cut out, that's extra fabric. What happens with that? So with zero waste, you use every piece of the fabric, right? And it comes down to the patterning. Now the one thing that I really wanted to do, and I really try to work with my students on that as well, is that zero waste and being sustainable kind of has gotten a bad rap. People think, oh, that's very earthy, not everybody, gets into that. Well, we really, and you'll see things are very trendy, really very important to, bring that to zero waste, bring that to sustainability, that we can be fashionable as well. Okay, so one thing that I came up with, and I'm trying to think how long ago it's been, but it's my spiral pattern. So you can see it back behind Cohen. You can see it, that's my spiral pattern. So it uses every piece of the fabric. And the thing that's interesting is that I could take it and I have it on the computer. I can make it as wide and as big as I want. So if the fabric's 45 inches wide, I can, print out a pattern 45 inches wide. If it's 60 inches, I can do that so that I'm utilizing all the fabric, right? And so I came up with that idea, and so since then I've been doing this this spiral. So if you look at, I'm trying to think where, there they are, behind Cohen there. Hey Cohen. This was actually one pattern, one pattern of the spiral. And so, I kind of had to play with it, and I have my students do this as well, that they have to take the half-scale dress form and play with that to get the zero waist. So I have this little dress form, half-scale dress form, and I have the spiral pattern. So I just keep, or it's actually in muslin, and I keep using it over and over again to create my next design. But I went beyond just doing one. So this one here, so this one here I used actually 2 different fabrics, but one pattern, and there were 2 different widths. So I was just kind of playing with it, and how I can come up with an idea to use 2 different fabrics together. And the skirt is actually like a silk and very drapey, and the other's like a brocade, and it's a little bit heavier to kind of complement them together, and the colorways were the same. So then what I did is I thought, okay, let me try 2. Let me try 2 spirals and see how that comes out, and I have to try to find which that, okay. So that was the kind of the magenta, the red one over here, the spiral always to the end. And so again, I knew that I wanted to do a strapless dress. So I took two of the patterns, which they cut apart, and it really creates 4 spirals. So I started just pinning that together, and that's just kind of what comes out. Now I've been very lucky. I have a good friend who's a fiber artist, textile designer, and so she does all the fabrics. This one and this one, and then that one as well. So she, uses a different technique. She's really, again, looking into sustainability, with dyeing. And so it's been a really nice compliment to be able to have, both, to be able to work with her. And we actually won an international award with both of those pieces back there. So this one here, I end up doing 3 spirals, and I happen to have this like a dead stock piece of the purple, right? And so I incorporated that, into that piece there, just to add a little pop. Because I knew, again, with that one, I wanted it asymmetrical. I wanted to have a big sleeve because going off of this one with the big sleeve, I just thought that would work really well. Okay. So then, okay, so next one I'm going to do 4 of them, which will be 8 spirals. So I'll have to see how that all comes out. I'm not sure, how it will come out. I started, wanting to maybe try pants, and I haven't tried pants yet, so who knows. So, let me see. Oh, so one thing that I'm really working on now, which is really interesting, is with a bunch of other faculty, fashion design professors all over the country. So Waco, Baylor, NC State, trying to think of some of the other ones. So there's a group of us that we've come together, and we're working with one of the designers, Melanie Carrico, and she came up with this Carrico zero waistband grading system. It's a mouthful. So we each decided to take this, and what happens is when you have zero waist, okay, so think about back in the day, zero waist would be a kimono. Think about a toga, right? These are all zero waist, and they use all the fabric. But, it's not necessarily form-fitting. So we really wanted to have something that would really be able to be mass market. So what she came up with the idea, because if you've got a 45-inch wide fabric, and you put this pattern on there, then how do you make it bigger? So she came up with this idea to do bands. So you add these bands in order to make it bigger, or smaller bands to make it smaller. That way, you could be able to put it into production. So we're now working together, and we're going to, get a manufacturing company to work with us and hopefully get some samples done and see if it's really feasible. Now this one here is my iteration for the last one. And you can see I put up here the different sizes on the right and how there's different, like I put the lace in it. I mean, you could do bands, lace, and then how that it could expand or go smaller. And you can see we color code it. We had this was actually published, a published article. So you can see the different patterns there and how that all, you know, comes together. Okay, so again, future plans, you know, we're going to come together and come up with some other ideas. You know, we really want to maybe get it out there and do something with it. Okay, so now I want to talk a little about my students. So the students, you know, as juniors, second semester, they take a class with me. Typically, it's kind of called draping. So where they're learning, you know, usually in the beginning, you're learning how to do a 2D pattern and then bringing that, sewing that together and putting it on a 3D body, right? So with draping, by that time, they've got a lot of experience with their patterning and they learn how to actually drape on the dress form, which is really hard at first, right? But it's really rewarding because then you can see, you know, as you design, how it's going to come out. But many of them still go back to the patterning or do a little bit of both, depending on what really they like, what works best for them. So the first project that I have them do is a zero waste. And with the zero waste, typically what we do, they design, do an illustration, right? And from that illustration, they do their patterns, and then from their patterns, they do something that's called a muslin or a toile, which is a simple garment out of muslin. And then from that, they come back, make adjustments, and then they come up with their design. So when I challenge them with zero waste, that is like a very hard concept. So they're almost doing it backwards, because remember, you're kind of starting, and a lot of times I just say, just get a piece of square fabric and start draping. And so it's a total flip on what they've already learned. And it's really hard for them at first. And right now, my other class is going through that now, and I have them work on half scale. So they're all work on half scale, and it's really a hard to transition, but then they get it. And some of them, again, really love it. And then the next project they do in that class is transformation, where it comes out looking one way and then it changes into another. So that way you get multiple use out of a garment, you know, which has a sustainable aspect to it. So without further ado, I'm going to have them come up and they're going to talk about their process and their designs. And their designs, this Madison's is right here, but along here is their designs. And you can see we took the QR codes, we took those off of our studio space. And so if you want to see their designs going down the runway at the fashion show, then you'll get to put that QR code and see that. And especially I think the ones that transform are really fun to see. So, you know, if you have time to do that, please do, okay? And then remember, the fashion show is May 4th, probably 7 o'clock. Any of the students that want to help from behind, but a lot of them are taking the fashion show class, so they'll be there helping. Okay, so now was it Jake that you're going to go first?
Sure. So this is my transformation. I kind of had trouble coming up with the idea. It's like a weird time of year, like we were taking this in February, March. A lot was going on, but I remember that we were going to New York for like that fashion trip. So I had to go home to get like luggage and stuff. And when I went home, the daffodils were blooming at home, and you know, it's a telltale sign of spring. So it's like in a really springy mood. I had been listening to like a lot of oldies and stuff. I grew up like listening to like 60s and 70s, like Diana Ross, the Supremes, stuff like that. With my mom and stuff. So I was kind of inspired by like 60s girls groups, like the Supremes. Just kind of like the innocent, like feminine silhouette. And then of course the daffodils. It's kind of where I got the color. So this is called Spring Affair. I call it a Spring Affair because like I feel like it's conservative, but underneath it's a little something like skimpy a little bit, you know.
Let's see. And his garment was on display at the Sattler Engineering Building in December.
So this just comes off, so we're gonna make a little flower dawn romper. So this is all, like the main body of it is cotton, intricately woven cotton. Typically you won't see like cotton used in evening wear. Like a lot of time, it's like silky synthetics. I just wanted something like really fun and like kind of unconventional for evening wear, and something for like the after party. So yeah, and then I used engineering laser cutter to cut out the flowers, and then I just like hand sewed those on. And you can't really tell, but I really wanted like some small details that you can't see unless you get up close. So I went back and wove in yarns of like pink and white to add some like just hidden texture. So, yeah.
Look at his QR code, and it's really fun to see it go down the runway and the model taking his skirt on. Okay, Madison?
Okay, hi, my name is Madison Hess. I'm a senior here at WVU, and this is my transformation piece from spring semester, my junior year. I would have to say my mood for this gown was very elegant, romantic. My sister just got engaged. I was in a very like springtime wedding feel. And I was searching for like bridesmaids dresses, and I also was just in the mood of spring. Like Jay said, like flowers and green blooming and stuff. And I also have a minor in art history, so my love for Baroque art and the French, like 17th century, is really potent through this design. So I went with the toile print, which I loved since I was a kid. I used to have wallpapers in my house with toile and bedding and stuff, so it's very fond to me. So with this garment, it was a challenge for myself because I've never really worked with prints, and I've never worked with a form-fitting dress before. It was my first time doing anything form-fitting with multiple layers of linings. So the first layer is more like a chiffon, and it has like little crinkles in it. It's 100% polyester, which I typically am not proud of. I'm trying to stay away from synthetics now, but I was at the time just looking for fluidity and comfort, which this dress definitely has. So it's very form-fitting. The other two layers underneath are also polyester, but so, let me see here. So every panel piece is self-lined with another layer of fabric, and then it's also, the whole entire dress is also just lined itself. So it's got 3 layers to it, which was a ton of work, and it's a lot heavier than it looks, but it's also very comfortable because of the layers to it. Also, last minute, I was doing this at the fashion show. I decided to add little details because I thought it just wasn't enough, because it's such a pretty dress and it has this giant train. I'm like, nah, it needs a little bit more. So I added just a little bit of a shiny detail here with some pearls. And I also added this neck piece that I had in my drawing but never made it because I was like, I don't know if I should make it or not. And then last minute decided to. But the way it transforms is that it has these sleeves and this giant cape in the back. So if you were to scan the QR code, you would see that the model reaches behind herself, and as she reaches behind to reach for the cape, the arm detaches, and then she detaches the cape so it all falls at one time. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works. But yeah, that's my transformation.
And then design was chosen.
Yeah, so my design was also chosen in the ITA Awards, which was shown in Colorado. I think, what was it, for the print or for the transformation aspect? Yeah. So that was really exciting. There's some more information on that, I think, on the W website or through Davis, but yeah, I think a lot of our students got into that, so that was really exciting. But yeah, that's about it for me.
Hi, I'm Hildago. I'm a junior in the fashion design, or this is a look that I did when I was a junior in the fashion design program. I'm currently a senior. This is different from the other two because this was the zero waste look. Those were transformation. So as Colleen talked about a little bit, the challenge with the zero waste is to create a design where you have no fabric waste afterwards. So when you cut out a pattern, there's usually a good bit of fabric waste. So that's how it's sustainable. So that was definitely a major challenge for a lot of us because the measurements had to be exact, like no mistakes. And if you made mistakes, then you had to find a way to incorporate that fabric back into your look. So with mine, I started out with just a photo of wisteria, the flowers from the wisteria tree. I often take photos that I've taken and I'm inspired by those and try to like create a garment out of that. So with this opportunity with the digital printing that we did, I took that photo and then I just zoomed in and then created this pattern for the skirt. And then I took the colors, the different shades of purple, and then created a gradient for this top piece. And when it came to this, I didn't do patterning and I didn't do a sketch beforehand. I just started draping on a half scale, which Colleen talked about a little bit as well. And so I had a big pile of scraps from my last design and I just started playing with those. And I knew I wanted to do a very dramatic neck, very much inspired by like Regency core and Elizabethan times. I'm obsessed with everything. Very old. But I started out just doing a really dramatic neck and it was perfectly like, it was reminding me of a lotus flower and I was like, I kind of love that. So just based off the wisteria, I started braiding, like trying to mimic the way that the wisteria falls and the way that it's like the vines are intertwined. So I just started braiding and having a lot of fun and this is what came out of it, the top. And then because the top was so dramatic, I wanted to keep it simple on the bottom, so just did the straight skirt. And it actually played into my favor because it was really easy to do the measurements for that. And for the top, it was just a bunch of strips of fabric. So the difficult part was just getting the measurements right on how to make all of this line up. So yeah, that's how it Yes. It won second place for most unique interpretation at our fashion show.
Very good.
Okay. Hi, I'm Peyton. I'm an alumni. That feels very weird to say, but I was in their class up until December. So this is my zero waste. It's inspired by New York City. In 2018, I got the chance to attend LIM College in New York and do summer classes with them for about 3 weeks. And during that trip, I was in a photography class. I did a design class and a bunch of different things. So all of the pictures that you see throughout this are all of the pictures that I took in my photography class. So even on the back, like that's Yankee Stadium, and then I have just like random ones of like the streets, subway, a sticker that I found on a pole. But so originally this was supposed to be my transformation, and I decided to not make it my transformation. Like I don't even remember how, like halfway through. But the original design was everything is supposed to zip up and become one thing, but yeah, so it unzips a lot. Like I have a zipper here. So essentially it becomes, it can be worn as a dress, it can be worn as a top and a skirt, it can be worn as a pair of pants. So I really kind of went all out on the concept of zero waste by making it something that comes together fully but can be used separately. Trying to think if there's anything else. Mainly all I did was cut out rectangles out of fabric and just kind of pin them, and then I made sure that like all my darts were correct and everything fit the way I wanted it to, because my original design had a bunch of curves in it, so I had to change it to be able to fit zero waste prompt. So yeah, that's mine.
Very good.
Oh yeah, I won first place for most unique interpretation.
Does anybody have any questions? Colleen?
On average, how long does it take your students to like create pieces like these?
So how long does it take for you to do this?
From
They're-
start to finish, like which one, like the transformation or the zero waste?
Yeah, because they
Yeah, we had to do both at the same
yeah.
time.
So students are starting their zero waste like yesterday, or started them yesterday, and they have to have the concept pretty much completed by Tuesday, because we have to order the fabric of their, come up with their, design engineered print. And then while they're waiting for that to come in, then they start on their transformation. So from this time on to the end of the semester, before the fashion show, hopefully that Friday before the fashion show, they'll all be done. So, good question. Anyone else? Yes.
You mentioned sending your current patterns to a manufacturer. Do you find that there's higher labor costs associated with making zero waste designs? As in, I know that one of the students mentioned. That if you mess up, you kind of have to start over, find a way to incorporate it.
Oh, I think because you order the fabric. They have to, as I said, there's a lot of math involved. So they kind of have to figure out exactly how much they need. And then, but then what happens sometimes, maybe it came, who said that, made that comment? So what happened? Did you have leftover fabric? Did you have less fabric or not enough?
I didn't start it.
She made it up. So did you have to order more fabric?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so she had to order more fabric, is what it was, and then use all that. So.
Yeah, there's so many issues you can run into while making it. It's just a learning
I
process.
did my pants 10 times probably.
Yeah.
Oh, right, that's right.
Yeah.
Because pants are hard.
So, I mean, the dresses are gorgeous, all of them. Do you get offers for people to buy them after you have the fashion show? Because my other, Colleen's my sister, so my other sister and I were like, well, I want that one. And they liked all of them. But do you ever get people that want to buy them?
I do know, I haven't yet for anything, but I do know my friend Ben, who graduated 2 years ago, he got to sell one of his pieces, what was it, last year?
Yeah, Joan bought it.
Yeah, it was a zero waste poncho that transformed in a backpack version of it or something, so somebody bought it for.
And then Dr. Rio, from your class, Casey, didn't somebody approach you about that?
Yeah, I mean, I posted it on LinkedIn and somebody wanted her to make one for them, so there's also that.
I haven't had anyone ask me for these, but since I've graduated, I'm working on 2 prom dresses right now that people have asked me to make them, so.
I know, I saw all the fabrics and the inspiration.
Same with the,
Very nice.
like this year, I'm making baseball caps and stuff that say Hillbilly and Appalachia. A lot of people have said they want to buy those and stuff.
Cohen again? No. I thought you'd come up with a question. Anybody else?
I have a question. On this design, you mentioned that there were strips that the designer added. So where do you see those in the actual end?
Okay, because what I did is I used the lace. The lace became the strips. So that I bought wider lace or smaller lace. So the smaller would be the size 6, would have a small lace. That's a size 8, and then I think I did a 12, and then you'd have even a bigger. But the actual pattern stayed the same.
The strip, okay.
So it was lace that I used because I was doing lingerie. We each picked a category. So. Anyone else?